Hello everybody and welcome to The Point, your weekly show for all things sports straight out of Pittsburgh in the 412. As always, my name is Riley Taylor and I am your host. I'd like to welcome all of you to the third episode of The Point where we have some interesting things planned for today. But before we begin, I just want to remind all of you to go follow us on our Instagram and Twitter at thepoint_412, as this is where you can catch all of our hot takes as soon as they release, answer polls on our stories, see behind the scenes of production, or simply stay up to date and engage with us as we continue to grow. Now on to episode 3. So here's the lineup for today's third episode of The Point. Today's lineup consists of 2 segments. The first, something brand new that we are going to try that we think you all find quite entertaining, a segment of quick questions and responses. Then, a continuation for episode 2, I'm going to wrap up the remaining 9 games of the Steelers season and give you my realistic expectations for how we can anticipate the season going for the post-bye week when I think the Steelers will be 5-2. So all that and more coming your way right now on The Point. So given the many important things that have been going on in the sports world throughout the past week, I thought this would be a great opportunity to give our takes and opinions on a few situations and possibly spike up some debates. So to start, a big name that can always be brought up in sports, and that is Tiger Woods. Golf has been one of the sports to return with strength during COVID-19, but one of the frontrunners, Tiger Woods, has unfortunately not been in the first 2 tournaments, despite winning the Tour Championship in 2018 and the Masters in 2019. So the question I have today is, do we see Tiger Woods retiring from golf very soon? Or does he have the strength to really keep on fighting with the expanding list of new young golfers for more years to come? Now, when it comes to Tiger Woods, I think it's more than safe to say that he truly makes a golf round so much more entertaining to watch. I mean, the guy, when he is on the course, people are screaming his name, commentators are always including him on the scorecards despite where he is, if he's not even in the top 10, and the general hype of a tournament in a golf round is just skyrockets when Tiger Woods is included. Now, obviously, he has had what it takes, to return to glory and win rounds, but definitely not on a consistent basis. Unless he sorts things out with his back and makes it through an entire season, or at least the majority of an entire season competing for the FedEx Cup, I think it's safe to say that Tiger may hang it up in the next 2 to 3 years. Because currently, he is tied for first all-time with PGA Tour wins with 82, and I see it as if he can get that 83rd win in just one more tournament, that might be the best way to cap off his career and retire for good. So unfortunately, time might be coming to an end for Tiger Woods, but hopefully he will stay in the game of golf and really figure things out with his back. And so in the past week, we have also found out that many players across the sports world unfortunately contracted COVID-19. Like a player in the PGA Tour on Saturday, multiple players in the NHL like star Austin Matthews on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and cases as a whole just skyrocketed in Florida, the heart of the upcoming NBA tournament. So with that being the case right now, the NBA has brought up the possibility of having players wear smart rings to help detect COVID-19 and monitor players at all times, given that they will be in a central hub located all together. Now, although this idea seems great and like a fantastic way to help prevent COVID-19, Lakers star Kyle Kuzma voiced his annoyance, saying that the rings, quote, look like a tracking device. And additionally, Kyle Kuzma chimed in about the NBA wanting to create a phone hotline for players to report situations of people violating protocols, which Kuzma called, quote, the snitch hotline. So let's be honest here, people. You think that someone being on the best team in the Western Conference, about to make a serious run at a championship, would just hold his comments and make things much easier for his team and get back to basketball and keep that in his way instead of just distracting himself and honestly distracting the media and his team? Like, where does Kyle Kuzma want to go in Disneyland, in Orlando, that he is worried about the NBA tracking everybody when they're already in the same place? That just doesn't really make sense, and I don't really see him voicing the reason to voice your concern about that. And what the heck is Kuzma going to be doing that he thinks that somebody is going to just snitch on him with these protocol hotlines? They're there to keep put in place so that the majority of players and the majority of teams can stay safe and that this tournament can actually happen. They're not there just to be an annoyance to all the players. So overall, I think if Kyle Kuzma wants to get back on the court in a timely manner, he really should just start holding off his comments and getting himself prepared like his teammates LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Now, the final topic that I wanted to just touch on briefly is Jake Guentzel of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, before his absence with injury, Guentzel was the team leader in goals with 20 in just 39 games into his young season. Now, he was seriously going to make a run at a goal title, taking in the fact that he scored 40 goals and 76 points in the 2018-2019, or the 2018-2019 season, I should say. Now, the question that I want to attach to this is Jake Guentzel going to resume his goal-scoring touch in the playoffs to help the Penguins, or is he going to really just come back flat? And honestly, I'm fearful that he won't make as great of an impact, especially right away. The guy last played on the 30th of December. That's over 6 months, and honestly, it's probably going to be 7 months by the time he really gets into a real game. And it's likely going to take weeks for him to find a touch and make an impact for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So in his replace, I realistically see someone that the Penguins picked up at the trade deadline, Jason Zucker, connecting with many more goals, especially if he's had the time to be able to develop some chemistry with Sidney Crosby during this quarantine. So, well, folks, those are all the few topics that I wanted to cover in recent sports over the past week. Let us know how you feel about Tiger Woods, Kyle Kuzma, and Jake Guentzel in the comments below or on our Twitter and Instagram at @thepoint_412. So moving into week 9 of the NFL regular season, we're going to see the projected 5-2 Steelers taking on longtime rival in the Dallas Cowboys. Now, prior to this game with the Steelers, the previous 4 games for the Cowboys will be against the very easy opponents in the Giants, Cardinals, Redskins, and then their rival, which is usually a tough game, in the Eagles. So realistically, out of those 4 matchups, the only game that the Cowboys should struggle with, now we never know what we're going to get out of them, it's a big question every year, is the Eagles. So coming into this game, they could have a good bit of momentum. And given that momentum, I still see the Steelers defense heating up after a week of rest in their bye week, and this being in the middle of the season. And I really don't see, Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott doing much damage, especially with Zeke on the ground. So given all this, even the momentum that Dallas is bringing in, I see a red-hot Steelers defense coming out, and the Steelers coming and holding Dak and company to just 2 touchdowns in a 34-20 win, moving to 6-2. Now, moving to week 10, the Steelers will see their first matchup against rookie quarterback Joe Burrow and the Bengals at Heinz Field. Now, although the reigning Heisman winner Joe Burrow has high expectations, I mean very high expectations, I just don't see him getting much protection in the pocket and much help at all in Cincinnati in his first season. So of course, this can all change, but given that, what we saw out of Cincinnati last year, especially when the Steelers played them, I just see the Steelers coasting to a very easy 41-23 victory at home and moving into 7-2 on the season. Now, as we move into week 11, Pittsburgh takes literally a vacation, I should say, down to the ever so sunny Jacksonville, Florida, to take on a dumpster fire of a football team in the Jaguars that, recently in the last couple of years made an AFC championship after beating the Steelers and just collapsed after that. So with this being a game that you could expect the Steelers to play down, I really hope they don't, but if Pittsburgh doesn't play down, I can see this being, this should be a victory that you would just coast through. But given just how we see the Steelers play down, I realistically seeing this more of a closer game, and the Steelers eventually beating Gardner Minshew with turnovers with a 33-19 victory. Now, as we move into week 12, we see the ever so anticipated rematch between the Steelers and the Ravens on Thanksgiving night in prime time. Now, given how fired up we have seen the Steelers in these situations in the past, and I even expect them to bring out the color rush jerseys again and prepare for all-out war against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. This is just a game that I see the Steelers staying in all the way and even getting a turnover late to seal the deal, similar to how they played against the Patriots a few years prior. Now, it's the game that I really do see the Steelers taking very late, 23-20, and improving to 9-2 with tons of momentum, getting this 1-1 record with the Ravens on the season. Moving into week 13, the Steelers find themselves carrying a ton of momentum into a weakened Washington Redskins team. Now, although big things are expected out of players like Dwayne Haskins and Adrian Peterson and everybody down there with how they've been having many rough seasons over the past couple years, especially in their division, I just see the Steelers dominating this game all over the ball and crushing the Redskins by a 38-17, score, and carrying a hefty 5-game winning streak at 10-2 at this point in the season. I mean, this is exactly what we could see. A tough start to the beginning of the season, but I could see this turning around to a winning streak after the rest of the bye. Moving into Week 14, the Steelers see a rematch against the Bills from last season, where they just simply couldn't get enough points on the board, although their defense played phenomenal. I mean, the score of that game was 17-10 Bills. It was a touchdown out of reach, and the Steelers just could not get enough offense in that game. So given that Ben is back at his, and hoping that he is at his full strength at this point of the season, I see this being a game heavily in the Steelers' favor, although the Bills look to make a run at their division with the Patriots losing key assets during the offseason. But all in all, I see this as a game that is very close, but Ben leading 2 late game drives to secure a 6th win in a row against a developing Josh Allen, who was only able to, as I said, secure 17 points last season. So I give this win to the Steelers on the road, 27-17. Now moving into Week 15, the Steelers get their matchup, their rematch with the Bengals, but I just don't see it being much of an issue, of course, given that by this point of the season, the Steelers are rolling if they are able to pick up these wins with this easy schedule, especially in a row. Now, although this should be a cakewalk of a win for the Steelers, I see them playing down a bit and getting behind early. That's something that we've seen from the Steelers, and it's bound to happen against very bad, opponents. And I could just see them finally turning things around in the second half. That's something that we see. Close, they're getting down. They might be down by a field goal or a touchdown at the half, but turning around in the second half of the game, post halftime. So, and that's just something that they did even against the Dolphins last year. And I used them as an example because we played the 0-7 Dolphins and got behind, I think, 14-0 at one point in the very beginning, or at least by a touchdown or so, and we turned it around and eventually won that game. So I see this as being a game that the Steelers can grab 30-20 and a win to move into 12-2 on the season, given that the Bengals just really don't have the support to hang with the Steelers, or they shouldn't, I should say. Now, Week 16 could be a very interesting game as the Colts come to town. Now, last season, the Colts made a very interesting run at the playoffs and took down huge opponents like the Texans, Titans, and Bills, and even were able to hang with the Patriots. Now, this is a game that I see the Steelers unfortunately blowing. And it really sucks after being on such a great run of getting multiple wins in a row. But this is a game that I just see them losing with a late field goal. And I could see the Colts shock the Steelers with a 26-24 loss late in the game. But it could pan out, but I just see the Colts hanging around as the team that the Steelers unfortunately struggle with. Now, moving into the final game of the season for a 12-3 Steelers team that is looking at a great run at hopefully a 7th Super Bowl, we see a rematch against the Browns. Now, we have no idea how the season could go for the Browns, and they definitely have plenty of skill to make things happen, but with this being a game that the Steelers likely don't need to win, I see them resting many starters and eventually potentially dropping this game if the Browns come out against a weakened, very few starting Steelers team. So if that is the case and the Steelers are resting the majority of their starters, I see this being 29-23 towards the Browns. But then again, if this is a game that the Steelers do need to win for some sort of seeding, which is very possible if the Ravens keep it close and these two teams are together, I see the Steelers playing a good majority of their starters and running to be able to get to 12-4 and potentially win 33-23, or I should say improve to 13-3 and winning this game 33-23. But again, this all depends on the scenario that this final game is on, and I have a lot of feelings that this is going to be a game that needs to be won for seeding. So we could see a 13-3 Steelers team. So, well, folks, there it is. The Steelers could realistically finish 13-3 or 12-4 in my eyes, depending on how a few scenarios pan out during the season. And although the schedule is incredibly easy on paper, I see the first half definitely being a tad bit of a struggle for the Steelers as they look to find their game in the second half after the bye, especially if Ben stays healthy. So expect a potential 13-3 or 12-4 Steelers this season. So as all, we are going to have time to cover today on the third episode of The Point. Of course, let me know how you feel about the Steelers season and our predictions, and how you feel about Tiger Woods, Kyle Kuzma, and Jake Guentzel in the comments below or on our Twitter and Instagram at @thepoint_412. As always, I'm your host, Riley Taylor, and we will see you on Friday.